All right. Welcome. Yes, today I'm going to share with you how to communicate effectively with your wife even when she doesn't understand you, or with your spouse, your husband if you are a wife watching this. I'm going to be using examples for men because this is designed to help men recover their marriages. But of course, the principles are from scriptures and it can bless you. Right, let's get to it. If you are in a relationship, in a marriage, and you find that there's just a lot of argument, every discussion ends in argument almost every day, this is going to change the way you communicate. This is going to change the way you deal with conflicts in your marriage. This is going to change the way you talk to one another, and you will have a lot less argument if you take these steps into practice. All right, so get ready for that. I'm going to share that with you today, so stay tuned. We're going to pray, and just a second as I put this. Yes, we're going to pray, and after the prayer I'll share with you. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to share with my brothers and my sisters, anyone who's going to watch this. For those who are with me right now live, I pray, Lord, that your presence will rest on them, that your peace will rest on their marriages. Lord, today my desire is that you would reveal to your children how to handle conflicts, how to handle negative situations in a marriage, and remain calm and peaceful while communicating tough things. Lord, I pray that light will shine into the hearts of each one, and your name alone will be glorified. We declare peace over the life of every person involved and who's going to watch this video. Thank you, Father. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen and amen. So this is a 5-day series, and the first day we started with the 3 core ingredients in a great marriage. We are talking about war against divorce, how to make sure that your marriage just gets better and better and doesn't go towards separation or divorce. That's the goal. That's my goal in doing these presentations. Yes, so if you're there with me live, please hashtag live. If you're catching this on the replay, hashtag replay. Now, if you were there with me yesterday, you are watching this one as a first video, do not skip the first one. The first one is so important. It gives us the overview of all the things we're going to be talking about. So go back and watch that video. I'll put the link to it in the description of this one. And in that video, I discussed yesterday, we agreed that there are 3 things that makes a marriage work. Number 1, and that makes a marriage great, if there's communication between the two of you, that such that you can speak your mind and not be ashamed, not be attacked. You can be both naked and not ashamed. In other words, vulnerable and not judged, not ridiculed. And so we're going to look at how to get to that point. You're not going to suddenly appear there like I shared yesterday. This has to be developed. It's a skill that has to be developed. At first, it looks impossible, but if you continue to work on it, it becomes possible. So that's the first one. The second one is unity. When you find that you and your wife, you have one goal, one purpose, you are uniting your visions to form one so that you can achieve the vision that God called you to. If you have that in your marriage, it's going to be excellent. I'm going to talk about how to get there tomorrow. The last one is connection, friendship, intimacy, spirit, soul, and body. When you have a friend, someone you can trust, you can rely on, you can share your deep secrets with, and you can connect with emotionally and also connect with intimately. You have a good sex life, then that's a fantastic marriage. If you have the 3 components, these 3 core things in your marriage is great. Now, some people have 2 or just one, and they don't have the other two, the marriage is still going to have a problem. Unless you have these three core ingredients, your marriage is going to suffer. So my goal this month is to help men recover their marriages. If your wife is separated, if your wife is really distraught and she's moved into a different room, or she's just not communicating with you or connecting with you properly, and you want to recover your marriage, you will be able to do so with the content of this video. Now, this can be applied regardless of nationality, regardless of upbringing. This is scriptures, and so scriptures work always. These are principles that God designed. God is the author of marriage, and if you tap into the way God designed marriage to be, and you work with God in the way He wants to work, your marriage will work very well, because He's the designer. When you have an equipment or an appliance, and you look through the owner's manual and you follow the instructions there, you get better results than when you just do whatever you want. So marriage was designed by God, and anyone who engages in marriage the way God designed it, it will work for you. So today I want to talk about communication. So what is really the problem? Why is it that a person that you chose to get married to has become so difficult to communicate with? How does that happen? I've been there before, and I want to share how God showed me the way out of that. All right. So the first thing is to understand the foundations of how you got married in the first place. A man finds a woman that he loves and says, I want to marry you. Why does he say that? He says that because all the time that they are engaging one another, he loves the way she makes him feel, and she loves the way he makes her feel. That's the foundation. And what I've just said to you is a very self-centered foundation, right? I remember when I got married, before I chose my wife, that she's the one I'm going to get married to, I prayed and I asked God to show me. I had many friends that I liked. I enjoyed the way they made me feel, but I was wondering which of them should I stick with for the rest of my life. It could have been one or the other. Now, but there were so many other women around me. I didn't ask them, and I didn't think of them being my wife. Why? Because I didn't enjoy the way they made me feel as much as I did with the ones I was considering. And when I think about that, of course, over the years, God has corrected my thinking. When I think about that, I realized that my focus was more about the way I felt more than the way she felt. Now, of course, I knew that she felt good. Part of the reason why I felt good was because I saw that my presence gave her joy. So that is true. I could see that she liked the way I made her feel too. But my primary reason was the way I felt. It's what makes us even begin the journey in the first place. So let's move forward. So you met this beautiful woman and you love her, and you prayed about it, because this is for believers. You prayed about it. You said, yes, God, I want to marry this woman. And is this the person for me? You felt led that this is the right person for you, and you agreed to, you took the bold step to talk to her, and you both agreed to get married. You communicated very well. She accepted. You communicated with your parents. Yegite Cooper from Jamaica, God bless you. Happy to see you here. You communicated with her and you said, you know what, we're going to get married. And you told your parents, everybody came together and you got married. That's good communication. Everything is going well. Now, you then proceeded to do the wedding. You proceeded to communicate until you have children. But then something begins to happen that makes it difficult for you to continue to communicate. And now, when you communicate, there is constant argument between both of you. And this is what I want to solve for you today. What causes that argument? It is because your expectations have changed. When your expectations change, then you begin to desire the other to do things for you that maybe they feel they can't do. So in my own story, what happened was when my wife came to join me in Canada, so I got married in Nigeria, and I came to Canada to study. And so when I got married in Nigeria, I came back to Canada, and she came to join me 6 months after. So I was already in Canada for 4 years. I got to Canada in 2000, the year 2000, 24 years ago. And then I went back in 2004 to marry my wife. So I've been in Canada for 4 years, and she was joining me after 4 years. Now, when she came, my expectation was that she didn't know as much about Canada, and I would train her and help her to get everything. All that is good. But she, on the other hand, also wanted to have independence, because she's a graduate. She's someone that has her own minds and her own thoughts. And so when she will communicate with me what she wants to do, I would not listen to her. Rather, I would tell her what I think she should do. And over time, she began to feel that she is not able to make her own decision by herself. She felt I was trying to control her. My own desire was to help, but what she was getting was the opposite of what I was doing. And so before we knew it, she began to feel deflated. She began to feel confused and moody. And when I would say something, she would respond in a way that I didn't understand. And so I began to pray to God that what is going on here? I'm doing my best. I'm trying to have a great marriage, but this marriage is going down the drain. And then I called for help. Number one, of course, I prayed, and then I called for help. I asked someone that knew both of us to help me, show me what to do. And while she was talking, the Lord opened my eyes to see that the problem that I have is not that we have a problem, is that I'm looking at myself rather than looking at her. I'm projecting my fears upon her. I'm projecting my thoughts on her. What I needed to do was to listen to her. And that changed my whole marriage completely. And I'm going to share with you the foundation for that. So it's not just one thing. It's a lot of things put together that makes it possible for you to communicate more effectively and clearly. So when I realized that the reason why I was struggling with my wife was because I'm thinking more about what I want rather than what she needs and what she wants, it made a difference. And so this time around, after I realized that, I started working on myself, working on how I think of things and what I'm trying to achieve. And I began to see that, it is your own fear that you're projecting. It's your own mistakes that you're trying to stop her from making. It's you that you're trying to prevent yourself from looking bad or wasting money. Slow all of that down and think about her. What is she feeling? How is she interpreting what's going on? Think about the fact that she's been uprooted from where she was strong, and she's been plugged into where you are strong. She's plugged into your friends. She's plugged into your church. She's plugged into your experience. She doesn't know much, and you are the only one she has. And you have a whole load of people around you. And because I began to think about her, I began to hear some of the things that she was saying. No, I'm not perfect, but I began to hear that. And that has helped me till today. All right. So how do we unpack that? Let's look at a situation where you as a man, you are trying to communicate with your wife. It could be the same, the other way too. I've met with women who said the same. I try to communicate with my husband, and every time I start a discussion, it becomes a problem. And the same can be from the man. So if you are the man right now and you discover that each time you bring up a topic, it ends up in your wife crying, or she's moody, she shuts down, or she begins to blame you and attack you, and the next thing you do, you attack her back, you yell at her, and the evening is over. Both of you are yelling, your children are crying, and the evening is over. So you make up your mind, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm a child of God. Why do we get here? How does this happen? Next time, I'm not going to engage in this. So the next time you try to raise a topic, for example, you mentioned something like, you know what, I'm sorry, yesterday I didn't come on time to pick you up. And she says, well, you're always doing that. And the moment she says you're always doing that, you realize that you are getting angry again. And so you say, you know what, I'm not going to engage in this. So you shut down and you stop talking to her. And then she goes back at you and says, yeah, that's what I always say. Whenever someone wants to talk to you, you shut down. You make me feel as if I'm an idiot. I don't exist. So she's attacking you again. And then before you know it, the evening is over. You've been yelling at each other again. What's going on here? It's the same thing. You're thinking about yourself rather than her. And how does that work? How can we change that? There's a book that I read, 2 books I'm going to talk to you about, but I want to talk about the first book by John Maxwell. It talks about 16 undeniable laws of communication. It's a good book. 16 undeniable laws of communication. If you can pick up that book, it will help you, of course, to speak to the public, but then it's also good for just communication in general. And there's a law there, the law of connection. And it says this is the most important law in those 16 laws. And the law of connection says it's about others. Every kind of communication is about others. That's the truth. Whenever you're thinking of communicating, you are trying to pass some information to another person. But more importantly, remember that communication is a transformation. It's a vehicle for transforming the other person. You're transferring some information to the other person to trigger certain reaction. And when you understand this, it's going to make a difference. God already designed us to be excellent communicators by treating us as love beings. God is love, and he created us in his image. So we are love beings. And if you want to understand what God's love looks like, you need to read Romans chapter 5, verse 8. In Romans chapter 5, verse 8, it says, this is how God demonstrates his love to us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. In other words, God's love is communicated by making sacrifice, a deep sacrifice, giving his best for us when we were at our worst. And so as God began to train me to open my eyes to see that when I want to show that I love my wife, the way to do so is learn to communicate. But when I'm communicating, I focus on her and how she feels, what she needs, rather than how I feel and what I need. And so she didn't need to change. I just needed to reframe the way I look at our discussions. And so when I say a thing or try to raise a topic and she gets defensive or she doesn't understand and becomes moody, I remain focused on my goal. What was my goal initially? And if my goal initially was selfish and self-centered, then I can rephrase that. I can change that and ask a question. How does that make you feel? What's going on there? Regardless of our action, I choose not to change my position. I choose not to change my goal initially until that goal is achieved. All right. So if I raise a topic and she defends herself or she attacks me, I ignore the attack for the moment and I try to achieve my initial goal. Sometimes my initial goal I discover is selfish, so I apologize. But many times my initial goal is always is honest, is to bless, is to help. But I realize that many times the reason why we have these problems is that when we have this good goal, our method of doing it can be negative. Or sometimes the method is just normal, is neutral, but the person that we are connecting with, our spouse, is in a in a sad zone or in a hurtful zone, or there's a trauma that way that we are bringing triggers. And so what we do when we discover that, okay, I have a good intention, for example, a person that is apologizing and saying, you know what, I'm so sorry that I didn't pick you up on time, gets attacked and says, that's what you do all the time, you only think about yourself. Now, the moment you hear those words, you only think about yourself, usually every one of us, what we would think about is you feel like defending yourself. You wonder, look, I'm trying to apologize to you and make things good. Why are you trying to mess things up? That's what you think. Why are you thinking like that? Because you are focusing on yourself. You're not focusing on the pain that she's feeling that's making her to react like that. And so when you stop trying to focus on yourself and you see yourself as the one who transforms your wife by demonstrating your love to her with your words and with your actions, then whenever she reacts that way, you're able to transform the discussion and say, hey, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to be a blessing to you. Let's turn this thing down. She may say another thing and another thing that's supposed to turn you off and get you really angry. But because you've chosen that, you know what, my goal is always to lift her up, to bless her, you would not get as angry as you would initially get when you were thinking about yourself. Right. So how do you get to this kind of mindset? Over and over again, I've practiced this and I've seen that it makes a humongous difference once you make up your mind that I'm not out to get things for myself. I'm out to love my wife. And no matter how she reacts to what I say, what I put out, I'm not going to change my goal. I'm not going to change my reactions. I'm not going to let the reaction derail my goal. Why? Because Jesus teaches us that the love that he shows to us is not a function of what we do. It's a function of who he is. God remains God regardless of who he's dealing with. And so we are to remain God's children, people who give love regardless of how our wives react. Now, as men, we don't want to be treated with disrespect. We don't want to be treated as foolish or as not knowing what we're doing. We don't want anybody to come into our space and treat us as if we don't know what we are doing. Nobody wants that. Every husband is dreaming of the day they will become the king of their surroundings and they will be the highest authority there, where they don't have to bow to anyone or fear anyone. But you see, when your wife begins to attack you all the time, you will discover that you may try to start to scream, to shout, to yell, to make a lot of noise so that she can respect you. But it doesn't work that way. It only breaks the marriage. Now, there are several habits that we all have that we use to try to get people not to take that respect or love value from us. All of that is still love. And there are habits that we have that we use to try to intimidate them to treat us with respect. And I'm going to share some of those with you. I learned this from a doctor called Greg Bear. He wrote a book called Real Love. You should get that book. It's also a good book. So I've told you about two books today. The first one is 16 Laws of Communication by John Maxwell and Real Love by Greg Bear. And in that book by Greg Bear, he talks about 5 different habits that we use to try to get people to love us or to stop them from taking love from us. I'm going to share a few of them with you. One of them is attacking. We attack people who try to take love from us, who do not respect us, men or for women who do not pay attention to you or do not do the things that you want. You attack them. You get angry at them. You complain. You intimidate them to stop that or to not take it away from you. Now, all of these habits, we use them so that we can control the way people treat us. But what I've noticed and what that book also was sharing and what scriptures also shows us is that when you focus so much on how a person treats you, so you're focusing on, okay, I'm going to get you to treat me right. I'm going to I'm not going to allow you to treat me wrong. When they decide now to treat you correctly, the love that you experience is not as deep as the love you would have experienced when they do it willingly. Love has to be offered willingly. But when you force love, or when you beg for love, or when you try to control love, the joy and the delight that you're looking for from the love is not the same. You get something which is better than zero, but what you really want, so that your marriage will keep moving forward and getting better, so that you grow to the point where both of you can be naked and not ashamed, you can share your deepest thoughts with one another, is to create an atmosphere where your wife can be herself without you attacking her. So, who's going to take leadership? It has to be you, the man. I want to let you know that somebody has to take leadership, and I always like to say, man, you take leadership. So when you try to bring up a discussion and your wife goes crazy, she begins to argue, or she begins to attack you, or she shuts down, she becomes moody. If you choose not to fall into that cycle, you will begin to create a new culture in your marriage. Somebody has to start that. This is the tough part. Somebody has to start that. And you that are watching me, you are the one to start it. Yes? So you choose that whenever I start a discussion, no matter how my spouse responds, I'm not going to change my reaction. My reaction is going to always be to love. My goal will always be to uplift them. My goal will always be to have them leave my space feeling better, knowing that I love them. That is it. That's the homework for today also. You go home and make up your mind that whenever I'm engaging with anyone, I will not change my intentions. I will not change my goals just because of how they react. My love for them is not based on their reaction. All right. So, for example, you find $100 in your wife's purse, and maybe you kept it somewhere and you have agreed that you're going to spend it together, but then she took it and decides to spend it. And then you said to her, the $100 we kept there for something, where is it? Did you take it? She says, no, I didn't take it. Now, immediately you hear that, you have to change your mind. Some people just get angry and say, you know what, what's wrong with you? You're always doing things like this. You take the money and then you spend it, and then I'm looking for it. No. You choose. I will not change my desire, my goal, based on her reaction. For the only reason why you were asking for that money, if it was to be a blessing to both of you, keep that motive going. And tell her, well, I couldn't find the money, but I saw it in your purse. Oh, that's not the one. Or whatever. You keep your goal. What's your goal? To uplift her, to bless her. So you engage. You continue to discuss until it is resolved without getting triggered. Now, what I've just said is only easy when you are healthy. You cannot do it when you're not. Yes, if you are suffering from traumas in your own life, you can do it. For example, what I've just said to you, communication is about the other person. But can you imagine when you're drowning? If you're drowning, you're not going to see anybody. You are drowning. The only thing you think about is survival. So what I said to you, it looks like theory. It feels like it's impossible because of some trauma that is already in your own heart. Long before you got married, those things were there. And that's why, in order to change that, when I train people, when I coach people to change their marriage, I always tell them 3 things that you must do to start the whole journey. There are 9 steps of changing a marriage, but the first 3 steps are so crucial. The first step, one thing that you must agree is that my joy, my happiness is my responsibility. And so no matter how my wife responds, no matter what she says, even if she says I'm an idiot, I'm a fool, I'm not going to lose my peace and my joy. Very important. There are so many things that we can talk to help you shift to that and shift your mind in that way, but take it right now as a point that you just have to learn how to do it, how to make sure that you take responsibility for your own joy, your own peace. This is my house, this is my space. As a man, I'm a king of this kingdom, and I'm not going to change my level of joy. I want to have joy. I'm going to have it regardless of how anybody around me behaves. I'm going to have my joy, right? Just do that. If you can just say even that, just say it or type it if you're watching me online. It's a beautiful thing. I'm going to always have my joy. She's not going to steal my joy. She's not going to mess my joy up. No matter how whatever, she's having a bad day, she has all these traumas, she's crazy, whatever you want to say, it doesn't matter. The truth is, she's not crazy, she's just hurt. And you are not crazy, you're hurt. All right. So we're going to fix that. You got to have fix that. How do we get to that point where we can say that? Number two, and sending her certain things in your life that has happened that you got to release negatives. So you have to learn to forgive, learn to stop judging. Yes, learn to stop judging, learn to forgive, and learn to release all those negative feelings for people that hurt you, yourself, and God. Now, you can't forgive God, but I find that a lot of believers are mad at God, but they cannot say so because they know that it doesn't make any sense to be mad at God. But I see that when I talk with them, when I work with people in my coaching program, and I have a training on forgiveness, when they see when we're walking through things, they realize that they are really mad at God because they don't understand how things are happening, and so they are mad at the way those things are, and it brings negativity into their lives. And what does that do? When you don't forgive, you bring this poison into your relationship, and sometimes you're reacting to your spouse, you're reacting to them not based on what they've done, but because of the poison, the anger, the hatred, the fear, the doubt that you already put in your heart. So you got to release that. And the last thing is what I talked about. Determine you're no longer going to use any of those habits to try to control anyone, including your wife. You're not going to control them. You're going to make up your mind that just like I don't want to be controlled, I'm not going to try to control anyone. Now, it's not going to be easy. You can start with anyone, but it's not going to be easy. So the way I work it, I start with the step one. Take responsibility for your own joy, and eventually you have to take responsibility as a man for the joy of your spouse. Of course, that's the next level of love. But first thing, you be healed. Take your own responsibility. The second thing I like to share with people, learn to release all the negatives in your life, regardless of what your wife has done. Eventually, you get to your wife, your spouse, and you release them. But check your life. There are certain people that hurt you. All they hurt that they hurt you is bleeding into your marriage. I remember working with a man, and he was crying like a baby. He was 60 years old man, crying like a baby when we're trying to forgive his father. He has brought all that hatred into his marriage, and he was treating his wife really badly. But he didn't realize that. And so when we were able to help him to release a lot of that, and we didn't finish that in one session, he was a lot better, and he could manage now to think about her. Right, but we didn't finish in one session. We had to work over time. And then the last one is, like I said, stop using those habits. Lying is one of them. Attacking is one of them. Acting like a victim. Running. When you stonewall, when you drop the discussion and just shut down. All of that. Everything you do to try to get someone to show that they love you, they care about you, you stop all of them. When you stop those, what's going to happen? You create a room for communication. You start to create a different culture where you say, you know what, when we start to discuss, we're not going to run away from the discussion. We're not going to break down the discussion. We're just going to keep discussing. We're going to keep bringing positivity into the relationship because I love you, because I care about you. And when you're able to do that, you're going to get to a space where both of you can be vulnerable with each other and not be ashamed. Oh, yes. With my wife, after 20 years, we are getting close and closer and closer to that. When we discuss right now, we can talk for hours on a topic and laugh and still talk about tough things and still say the way we feel, what we don't understand, what we don't agree with. And it doesn't get into an argument. It doesn't get into somebody storming away. It doesn't get into someone shutting down and just ending the discussion. We used to do that. We'll start a discussion and then somebody will say, you know what, I don't feel like talking anymore. Because you're always right. Yeah, that's me. I'm always, but we learned to change this. How? By focusing on the other. By focusing on the other and just allowing that love to flow through. All right. Now, it's not an easy thing, but it's what you must do. It's like learning how to swim. It's like learning how to play the keyboard. It's like learning how to build a computer, whatever skill that you're learning. You got to practice. And that's where a coach is needed. When you have a coach, it makes the journey faster and it tells you that it is possible. There are certain things that most of you know that I'm learning how to swim. There are certain things, and I'm waiting for my class tonight. There are certain things that my teacher tells us to do. I've not been able to do them. I know this the third or fourth lesson in this new series. I've done the first set of 9. I've been able to pass those. Now we're starting another set of 9. I can't do certain things. No, stay on your back and float. Put your chest up. It doesn't work for me. It works. It's just that they said that I need to change something in my mind. And no matter how much I'm told to do it, I'm not able to do it until I practice. So some of these things that I'm sharing with you, just know them as the goal that you have to achieve and begin the process. And keep at it. If you keep at it and you don't give in and you ask questions, you're going to get the result. And you'll be amazed at how you can have much deeper connection with your spouse and not shut down. Now, let me just say one more thing before I wrap up for today. What if you are the one that starts the communication and they blow up? They just blow up. What do? Well, you stay calm and you continue to discuss. Now, sometimes when the person blows up, you know that you cannot continue because they are completely out of their mind. Yeah, you stop and then you continue next time. The goal is to remind yourself that I am here to love you, not to get you to love me. But it's so hard to do. It's so hard to do when you're not used to that. What most of us are used to is getting you to love me, getting you to respect me, getting you to do your thing the right way that I need to do it. It's not, hear people saying it's not fair. Why would you treat me like that? Yes, you're right that people should not treat you negatively. But when you change your mind from, I don't need you to treat me like this, to feel like this, to feel right, to feel good. This is my space, and I'm not going to let your craziness, your blowing up, your accusations, your lies change my day. It's a different mindset entirely. And what you're doing is you're breaking the cycle of negativity and you are creating a new cycle. You have to pay that price. Remember Romans chapter 5 verse 8. In this, love is demonstrated to us. How? Christ died for us while we were yet sinners. When we were at our worst, blowing up, getting crazy, doing foolish things, lying, deceiving, Jesus gave his best. What's his best? His sacrifice. Your best is now to be patient, but of course not to indulge wrong things. You stick to the positive. You stick to the truth. You speak it. You stay with it until it changes the person. All right. So if you are watching me for the very first time, you're not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe. We're going for 5 days of war against divorce. And this is day number 2. Today, we're talking about how to create a safe space for communication. And the core of what I've just shared with you is that you cannot communicate properly when you're thinking about yourself. You cannot stop thinking about yourself when you're drowning and hurt. So focus on getting healed so that you can communicate properly by focusing on your spouse. And when you do that, you're going to create a new atmosphere where both of you can speak freely and not be ashamed. Somebody has to start, and then the other person gets enrolled along the way. All right. So if you have a question, please go ahead and type your question. I'll answer them. But if not, then we're going to wrap it up here. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about unity, how to move forward and work together. Work together in your finances. I'm going to share my story of how we do that. Work together in your finances, work together in your ministry. I'm always going to give you the core stuff that you need to know. Because once you know that, every other thing can be built on it. Like yesterday, I gave you the core 3 things that must be in marriage. Today, I've given you the main ingredient, which is think about the other. But of course, you can't think about the other unless you are healed. No drowning person thinks about any other person. It's not possible. You can't be drowning and be thinking of others at the same time. When you are drowning, you think of survival. And so we got to get you not to be drowning in life so that you can then think about your wife. So that's today's one. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you the core of how do you work together, have your life together, measure your visions. What is the core? What is it that you need to know and do? I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk about how to get intimacy, how to have intimacy in spirit, soul, and body, and to have a good sex life. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. I'm going to share from my experience, and I'm going to share how I help others to do so. All right. So the Lord bless you, and share this with others. Until tomorrow, continue to love like Jesus and make mega impact. Now, I remember Yugita, good to see you again. And everyone that's live with me, God bless you. I look forward to connecting with you again. Bye for now.